This video is a Twitter exclusive, or X exclusive, or X exclusive? Exclusive? I don't know, whatever. I'll make up some kind of clever name. Anyway, this video is not going to go on TikTok because it'd probably get taken down, or they'd send a drone strike after me if I posted it there. So in this video, I'm going to talk about something that I saw Piers Morgan asked Vivek Ramaswamy, and I hope I pronounced his name right. I'm sorry if I didn't. Asked him a question about the gun issue. So I grew up around guns, more than probably most of you out there will ever know and stuff. And some people who recognize me, if you're out there, you'll know who I am. I grew up around guns and have been around it for a long time professionally. And he asked the question about like the gun issue. I'm going to answer it the way that it probably, I don't want to say it should be answered. I'm just going to answer it the way I'm going to answer it, which is this. There are 450 million odd guns. We don't even know how many guns are in this country, in the U.S. We're talking about the U.S. now. We're talking about the Second Amendment, the U.S., etc. Because Piers Morgan asked the question about why is it I can't have a chocolate egg with a prize inside. I don't know what the fuck that is. Anyway, but I can buy an AR-15. Well, first of all, let me just explain this to you. America is extremely peaceful. In fact, it's extraordinarily. In fact, it's so peaceful here in America. That when you look at the amount of the volume of firearms, there should be a lot more violence than there actually is, strictly speaking. I mean, think about it this way. We have the U.S. being openly invaded at the South, like daily, and no one seems to be doing anything about it. It's no big thing, right? We have a whole bunch of people on the Epstein list that are basically a bunch of fucking pedophiles. No violence there. Nobody's gone after them. No one's chased them down. We've had a whole bunch of people that were on January 6th, right? What were they doing January 6th? Them protesting. Some people went through the building, took an unscheduled tour, if you want to call it. Nobody's really stole anything. And I think the handful of people that actually did steal stuff, they were prosecuted. Almost immediately. Everybody else is being held effectively as political prisoners. No one's broken them out of jail. There's been no call to like, hey, we should lock and load and go get those people out of jail, I mean, why is it that El Chapo or El Chapo's son had better friends than any American? It's really strange to me how people can watch movies like Lord of the Rings or Star Wars, right? I mean, not to just invoke the Holy Trilogy here, but let me just attack this for a second here. Why is it that we watch movies of friends, I don't know, laying waste to hundreds, if not thousands of people to break their friends out of jail that are there for political reasons? And yet, no one does that. Why doesn't that happen? I would argue that the U.S., in spite of all of the guns that it has, is insanely peaceful, more peaceful than it should be, technically. So when I see these kinds of things, I have to ask myself, like, why isn't there more violence? I'm actually asking. I'm not encouraging anything. To be clear, I want to be very clear to X and Twitter and everything. I'm not encouraging or glorifying anything. I'm actually asking a legit question. Why isn't any of this happening? Probably because have American men turned into nutless monkeys? Possible. I mean, seems to be a lot of that going along. So I mean, maybe that's the case. But I have to ask these types of questions. Like, I mean, just as an observer, as a scientist, I've got to look at this and go, well, hold on a second here. Why is there so little violence when there's this many guns? You tell me. So when I see this question that Piers Morgan asked, and it's meant to be a gotcha type question, it's meant to be one of these things where it's like, oh, well, like the Second Amendment. Like you people, I don't know. I don't think that most of you, even most politicians, even understand what the Second Amendment actually is. The Second Amendment doesn't just protect. I mean, the Second Amendment is one of these things where imagine if every American were armed as heavily as they should be. Here, let me give you an example, Pierce. If you the odd chance that he sees this, I'll give you an example. Breonna Taylor, a bunch of cops broke into her house and murdered her. Right? What should have happened there? Americans, if they were armed properly, would have turned those cops into Swiss cheese, turned them into fucking cat food, rolled their corpses out into the street for the carrion eaters. That's what would have happened. That's what probably should have happened by rights. What about those people, the guys, the cops who broke into the wrong house? It was the wrong fucking house. There's nothing there. All they did was they shot the dog and everything. Nothing happens to those fucking guys. If Americans were armed the way they should have been, once again, what would have happened? I mean, I don't know, open fire with twin 50s on them, roll the corpses out into the street, and everything. Let the fucking, be a feast for the crows. I'm not glorifying, again, for the record, I'm not glorifying any of this. I'm straight saying, like, why isn't that happening? When that by rights is probably what should have been happening during all of this. So when the gun control question comes up, because I can make arguments for both sides. I've heard more arguments for gun control than I care to remember. Well, when I look at it, I'm like, okay, well, let's not just talk about guns. Let's talk about, I don't know, cruise missiles. Why don't we own private cruise missiles? We should. Americans should own private cruise missiles. I've been long an advocate for that. In fact, like, well, but it's too expensive. Well, I don't know about that necessarily. In the private market, what would end up happening is that over time, prices tend to come down, don't they? It's one of the reasons why they want to keep you broke. It's one of the reasons why they want your currency to be constantly worthless, because if your currency were to increase, the average American would be able to afford all this stuff, right? Because prices come down. Technology gets better, prices come down. That includes cruise missiles. I can tell you comfortably that if I had started with 10 cruise missiles about 10, 15 years ago, I'd be down to about 3 now. And that has nothing to do with politics. That has to do with just customer service and not answering the fucking phone. So, and I'm saying that tongue in cheek, but I mean you get my point, right? So why is from my perspective, it's like America is actually extremely peaceful, given the amount of firearms that we actually do have. I would say that Americans have been more than patient. Abundantly, in fact, criminally patient at this point. Southern border wide fucking open. I'm in South Texas, guys. Southern border wide fucking open. Nobody does anything about it. Nobody cares. If anybody were to go down there and do that, what would happen? What would happen if a bunch of Americans went down there right now and we all know what would happen. It'd start a war. Within the federal government, they would send people down there to actually to arrest all the people who are trying to stop the invasion. So we all know that's exactly what would happen. The whole country knows that's what would happen. Tucker Carlson, I saw he asked that rhetorically. He should have asked that very seriously. Instead of being rhetorical about it, I should have straight asked, like, why? Why exactly do we have all these goddamn guns? For real. Fight tyranny? Well, that ship has sailed. Probably about 30, 40 years ago, that ship sailed. So, I don't know. I can say that if the average American were armed as heavily as they probably should be, and they're not. We're not talking about machine guns here, dude. We're well past that. Well past that. I want to know why it is that there aren't private ownership of Javelin rockets. I have a suspicion that no-knock warrants would come to an end if that were the case, especially if you're able to put claymores around your house. They stack right, they get blown in half. So, on the gun issue, which is why this is an X exclusive, because I'm not going to put this on TikTok or anything. I may put it on YouTube, and I'm sure they'll nuke my account if I do. Because I'm asking a serious question. You tell me. You guys, you're the internet. You people are out there. There's thousands of you out there now that follow me, follow my work. You tell me if we're a peaceful country, given the state of things, given the state of where we're at right now, watching your currency being full fucking debased right in front of you. The destruction, the wholesale destruction of not one, but 3 generations of people. Their currency, their livelihoods, everything, being completely destroyed right in front of you. You're all watching this happen. A bunch of you are making excuses for it, too. Previous video, I just talked about that. The Stockholm Syndrome for currency. You're watching this shit happen right in front of you. On a daily basis, almost hourly, being broken down on the internet. I think Americans are being obscenely peaceful, given the amount of hardware they actually do have. What are your thoughts? That's my opinion. So, to Piers Morgan's question for Vivek, what do we need all these guns for? Well, I don't know. That's a great question, but I can say that what we probably should be more armed, if anything. Maybe that would speed this process up. We can hit bottom a little faster than dicking around with all this. Everybody complaining about, why it is that their currency doesn't go any further. Why it is that they're working all day long. They're working harder than they've ever worked, making more money, making more dollars than they've ever made, and they're going backwards faster than it's ever happened before in the past. I'm not encouraging anything. I'm seriously asking questions. And I think these are valid questions that other people should be asking.